Mr. Jason Nazar.
Hey guys. Welcome to Startups Uncensored number 23. For those of you that I haven't met already, I'm Jason. I am the co-founder and CEO of Docstoc. Docstoc's one of the largest internet companies here in Southern California, and we're actually one of the most trafficked sites on all the internet. So there are approximately 20 million people a month that come to Docstoc, and they come to us to find resources for their small business and startups, the situations that you're all in, and we're probably best known as a site where people come to get documents. And for those of you that haven't been to one of these events before, which I know a lot of you have, I'm going to tell you the quick story of how Startups Uncensored came about. So I, like a lot of you, just started this entrepreneurial path in tech really not long ago at all. And it was 3 years ago, and we were in our old office, and I put out a blog post saying, anyone who needs help with their company, come on by to our office. I'll buy pizza, I'll buy beer, we'll stay late. And what I thought was going to be 5, 10, 15 people coming by turned out to be 40. And we couldn't even all fit in the room that we had in our old office. So we went to the Santa Monica Public Library, and we did a session there, and we stayed there till about 3 in the morning and hung out. And we started doing that month over month, and that was Startups Uncensored number 1. And we're now almost 3 years later. We've done 23 events, and this is by far the largest, most attended event that we have. And I think it's a credit to what we've done, but also a credit to our guest speaker here tonight, Mike Arrington. And the reason why I think that story is also really important in relation to Mike is because in the same way that I've tried to help pay it forward and bring all of us here in Southern California to help each other on our companies, Mike did the same for us. And when we were very first starting out, and I just had the idea for Docstoc, and Alana and I were working together, and I was a graduate student, and no one in the world had any idea who we were or what was going on, and we were as far as removed from the Bay Area tech scene or starting a company. Mike took a tip on a mutual friend of ours, and he wrote about our company. And before it was ever launched, that's what got us going. And it was also Techcrunch that picked us to be in their very first conference, Techcrunch 40, which I actually think we made the Techcrunch 20 when it was only 20 companies. And that's what got us on our way. And really the goal of tonight is, I know what a lot of you are thinking about and going through, which is you either want to start a company and you want to figure out how to do it. You're running a company and you've got questions about what to do and how to do it. You need to raise money for your companies, or you're growing and you're trying to figure out what to do, or you want to be around entrepreneurs. And tonight is about getting great lessons from people that have been extremely successful. And we've got one of the best guests that you're ever going to find in tech tonight. And it's about all of us here helping out each other. So we'll be together in the Fireside chat for about the next hour and a half. At some point later this evening, we're going to open it up for questions for you all. And then we're going to break. We'll have a mixer, be some food, grab some drinks, and we'll all get a chance to meet each other and hang out tonight. So, we're able to put on these events. If you want to ask me any questions to ask Mike, you can feel free to ping me on my Twitter handle. We got a couple guests here tonight. Is Yossi or Ruth here with the Israeli delegation? Are you guys here yet? All right, we may later have Yossi Vardi, who's one of the top investors in Israel, come out. He brought a delegation of 40 companies from Israel out here, so you get a chance to meet those folks. There are a lot of people here that have been able to help put on events. Is Alea here anywhere? Alea, are you around? We're going to grab Alea just in a sec. Alea in our office has been the one that's really done all the work to put this event together, and she did an absolutely fantastic job. So part of the folks that have been here helping us out since we started has been Microsoft. They've been with us since the beginning. They've helped sponsor the events and subsidize and make the events possible. Before I get to them, Alea's in the back there. Guys, do me a favor. Give her a round of applause. Those 500 emails you got about Startups Uncensored came from her. She helped organize it all. She's done an absolutely amazing job, and without her, we wouldn't be able to put it on here tonight. And I also wanted to thank the Fairmont that helped us on a little bit of a discounted rate to make this room here tonight possible. So our events are put on and sponsored by Microsoft BizSpark. If you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, take out your phone for a second and just tweet out, hey, @Docstoc, I'm a fan of @Microsoft, @BizSpark. If you've been to these events before and you like them, they're the ones that are helping sponsor it. They do an amazing job. BizSpark is an amazing program that for startups will help you get access to the entire suite of Microsoft software while you're scaling up the company. And Aaron's got a couple other announcements from Microsoft that he wanted to talk about as well, too. So please join me in welcoming Aaron.
Everybody. So my name is Aaron Standard, and I'm a startup developer evangelist with Microsoft. And what that means is it's my job to help any company in here who wants to do something on Windows Phone 7 or on Windows Azure or very soon Windows 8 be successful in doing that. And the other half of my business is helping you guys partner with us and get connected to some of the other companies we work with, regardless of whether or not you're on our platform. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what I do, I'm here and a bunch of my team, you guys want to raise your hands real quick, are here. So please come and see us afterwards. The one other big announcement I want to make is that we recently announced that we're partnering with Techstars to bring a Microsoft Kinect accelerator. How many of you guys have played with the Kinect for Xbox so far? So what we're doing is we're opening it up for commercial development, and so these 10 companies will be run under the supervision of Andy Sack, who runs Techstars Seattle, and you'll be some of the first 10 companies to ever have commercial access to Kinect. And so it's run just like any other Techstars program. And so if you're doing anything in the augmented reality space or anything with motion capture or any of that type of technology that would fit into what Kinect does, please come and see us afterwards, and we'll help get you introduced to the people who are running that incubator. Cool. Thanks.
Just for a frame reference, I know a lot of you here are looking to raise money. If you are an angel investor or a VC, can you just stand up and raise your hand for a second? Dave, where are a couple other folks over there? Okay. There are a number of people here helping to connect the community. We've got our good friends from the Co-Loft out here. Where are my friends from the Co-Loft at? Stand up. Some of the best shared workspace here in Southern California. They've been out here from the events. If you're looking for a place to work while you're getting your startup off the ground, they're pretty amazing. And also for everyone that comes here, we offer our premium subscription service free. So you can go to that URL that you see right now. You can put in the following code. We'll email it out to you. And you get access to our premium subscription service for free. We still don't have Yossi here, do we? Yes. Yossi, where are you? Oh, Yossi, come over here. Come by here a second. Do we have your delegation of companies here with us?
No, they are stuck in the traffic.
Oh, they're starting the traffic. Okay. For those of you that don't know, Yossi Vardi is one of the most respected folks in the technology field anywhere, but he's known for his Israeli roots. He brings a delegation of multiple companies every year from Israel to the United States so they get a chance to meet folks here, meet investors, share resources. Someone that I've looked up to for a long time. You all should come by and meet Yossi tonight and make sure to meet the companies he's on, either for partnership deals you're working on or anything else. Any other thing you want to talk about with your delegation of companies?
Yeah, let's hear Michael Arrington.
All right, you got it. Without any further ado, thank you for coming by, Yossi.
My microphone is on. It's off. Oh, no, it's off.
So we're about to get started. I know a lot of you probably know Mike through Techcrunch and have read his writings and have heard numerous things about him over the years. And he's got a reputation that is big enough that it certainly precedes himself. What you may not know is a personal side of Mike Arrington, which I've been lucky enough over the last couple years to get to know. And that's in part what I want to share with you tonight, as long as his lessons and learnings. And when we very first started out, I would come to the Bay and I'd be pitching venture capitalists. And he would invite me to his house and say we should work out there, work there. He's done a lot of things, not only for our company, but if I were to try to name the single person that over the last 5 to 6 years has done the most to help out the most number of technology companies, I don't think I could put anybody on top of that list than besides Mike. And with TechCrunch, what he really did is he galvanized and brought together an interest in tech companies and put so many of us on the map so that we could get our businesses off the ground. And he's someone that is an extremely captivating, hard-charging entrepreneur, and at times certainly can have people think all sorts of different things about him, just like it is for all of us. But I can tell you from personal experience that in the entire tech field, he's probably one of the 3 people that I look up to most and have considered a friend for a long time. And I'm very happy that you all are going to get the chance to hear in his own words tonight his entrepreneurial journey and what he thinks about the tech space. So without further ado, please welcome me in joining Michael Arrington.
Is my mic on now? Okay. It was on some of the time I was over there whispering. Hey, Yossi. Have you ever interviewed Yossi?
I have not yet.
He's much more interesting than I am. We always have him at our conferences.
Hey, Yossi, come up. Mike, grab a seat. You don't mind, do you? So kind of the format of what we do in the discussions is we like to simulate just if you and I were having a conversation, in this case with 700 people listening in. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of get from you what was your entrepreneurial path, what were your journeys, what were the lessons that you've learned, and then what are the big things that you can impart on everybody here to help them make them be more successful. So just so you get a sense, how many folks here, by show of hands, are currently running your own company? And how many plan to start your own company in the next 6 to 9 months? And for those of you that are...
What is everyone else doing? You work for another company, or you're a venture capitalist, or what?
So I think there are a lot of people here that are in the tech space, working in tech companies as engineers on the marketing side, and interested in entrepreneurship at some point themselves. And how
But
many,
they didn't raise their hand.
if they didn't raise their hand?
Didn't you ask if you want to start a company or in the next year, you said?
I did.
When I worked for other people, I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. I just think that's interesting, that somebody is like at a startup where it's a different life than a big company and negative in some ways, and that you don't have the aspiration to start your own company. I'd love to know why. No.
Maybe we'll find that out this evening, Mike. Not everyone can start companies. Probably some people want to work at
Why do you say
companies.
that?
I don't know.
Why would you say that? Not everyone can start a company?
No, I didn't say everyone can. I not said everyone wants to.
You said, quote, not everyone can start a company.
Did I say that?
I believe. I'm just saying that I think people have it in them,
Then I stand corrected. I think anyone can start a company if they've got the will for it.
Okay.
All right. But that's the perfect segue, because my first question for you is, why did you want to start companies? You had gone to law school. You worked in one of the biggest law firms.
Could we
Did you
just start?
already know-
Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur. Raise your hand. No, okay, now raise your hand if you didn't just raise your hand, but you want to be an entrepreneur. Okay, now someone who hasn't raised their hand who isn't a VC, explain what what it is. Like, why would you come to this event tonight if you're not aspiring to start your own company, and you're not a venture capitalist, and you're not an entrepreneur? Why are you here?
Do you think that everybody reads Techcrunch, runs their own company? Don't you think people that read Techcrunch are uncrunched now?
Why here, though? Like, why not be out at a bar or at home watching anything? Or, I mean, what is it that you want out of this networking event? I'm actually curious. Like, what is it?
They may want to just hear your thoughts.
Okay. So you want me to let this go?
You don't have to, but I think we should talk about you to start off with.
It's just awkward, because I always ask these questions, like, what is the audience you're talking to? And this is highly entrepreneurial, which is great. This is a good audience for me. I identify with this audience more than any other. But a lot of people are just don't want to start a company. I find that interesting. But we can drop it. I can bring it up later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So when did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Was that something you knew since you were a kid, or that happened later on in life?
No, I didn't know. I was sort of fell into it. I was in school, and when I was graduating, it was pretty clear the economy sucked, and that getting a job wasn't going to be easy.
Coming out of undergrad, or?
Yeah, and so somebody suggested I should go to law school, put it off for 3 more years. So I did that, and I ended up at Stanford, which was great. But it was pre-internet, and I didn't know anything about tech. I mean, I had a computer, and I played SimCity like we all did back then. But that was it. And so in law school, some people were talking about tech and Wilson Sonsini and some of the tech firms, but it wasn't really my thing. I ended up at a big law firm in San Francisco doing really boring legal work. And then one day I pulled up Netscape on the computer in the library and went on the internet for the first time. I mean, I'd done the AOL and whatever CompuServe before, but it was Yahoo, and it was like, oh my God, this is probably interesting. And I started looking at following Netscape and how well they were doing, and I just got to Wilson Sonsini, which was the law firm you wanted to be at to represent these companies, just because it was exciting, it was interesting, it was the most interesting legal work that you could do at the time. And
Why law school? Just because it was a thing to do?
Yeah, literally. It was terrible. I didn't go. I never went to class. It was because it was 3 years putting off the bad economy, and great for the resume. Keep doing the college thing, and it turned out.
Were you the hardworking student, or were you just a really smart student, or were you both? Because you're actually from LA. You grew up down here in Orange County.
I grew
went
up
to
in
undergrad.
Huntington Beach. Yeah.
Claremont McKenna, right?
Yeah. Went to Berkeley for 1 year, and that didn't work out. Only because it was like these classes with 900 people. It didn't seem like real college to me where you're learning. So. Yeah, I went to Claremont McKenna, a tiny school out here, and then law school. Went to the best law school I got into. It literally just to pass time. I wanted to keep college going. And I hated it. I hated law school. I hate lawyers. I hate all that. And I ended up hanging out with all the business students. A couple of my classmates were JD MBAs. They were in the business school, and hung out with them, and they were a lot more fun, interesting people.
So why did you even practice? Why not just start a company right when you came out of law school?
Because when I got out of law school, they were offering $75,000 a year to be a lawyer, and there was no other job that was going to pay me that much. And that's what you do when your parents buy you a law degree. You go make some money. So I did that for a while, and I actually enjoyed it. But I found that the legal work itself wasn't all that exciting. What is interesting to me was the board meetings, when the strategizing was happening, and these legendary venture capitalists, would be in the room, telling the CEOs what they should and shouldn't do, and I'd be in there, taking notes, right, not saying a word, but just watching it and seeing the big decisions that were made in a boardroom, about raising more money and hiring, weren't layoffs or anything back then, but just merging who you're going to buy. It's like, that's awesome. That's like from the movies. You see these amazing deals go down. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to be in that room as a player, as somebody participating, not as a guy taking notes. So then I jumped into a startup and went from there.
And so the first startup you went at, they raised $100 million, right? It was Real Names?
Yeah, Real Names was cool. They raised a lot less than that when I joined. They were one of my clients. And
was it one of the classic burnout stories of?
Me or the company?
The company.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was house cards. It got profitable. They relied on a deal with Microsoft. Actually, what Real Names did was it was on top of the DNS system. So you'd go to the browser line. This was before search really worked. And you'd type in, whatever you wanted, Coca-Cola. It was like AOL keywords, and it would take you to a website, based on that. It was sort of a namespace layer on top. And then they'd sell those names.
You make that jump because
Microsoft. Can we keep going with that or no?
No.
I was going to get a little jabbing on your sponsor. I think you saw that coming, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to veer away from that.
It was a long time ago.
How did first position
So
you
yeah,
got?
Microsoft killed the deal and killed the company. It was profitable. It was long after I left, though.
Stand up if you're at Microsoft. Let's. All right. So. I went to law school.
I mean, it really sucked because people their families are relying on it. And, I learned, you can't rely on Microsoft. If you do business, I'm just kidding. No. I love Microsoft. They sponsored a lot of our events too.
What was that first? What was the title of your first job at Real Names? And how did you go from being an attorney to getting that first one? Because I get a lot of attorneys that come to me and say they want to lap the tech. Where do they start?
A lot of lawyers go into biz dev because you're already doing deals. You're a corporate lawyer, you're papering deals. Biz dev is just moving up the food chain to sort of getting the deals happening. Yeah, so I was head of biz dev, and then they put me in head of sales, which I had no qualifications for, but I managed it.
And have you always been ultra competitive and combative? I mean, as an attorney, were you as competitive as you were as an entrepreneur?
Actually, this I think is interesting. I've never really talked about this much, and written about it, and I will at some point because I haven't figured it out yet. I might need a therapist to do it. But if I go out and play basketball with some buddies, I'm enjoying playing basketball with buddies. I really don't care if I win. I'm not really competitive when I played video games or whatever. I'm not that kind of competitive. But there are things that I can't do or I think I can't do that it sort of pisses me off that I'm scared of doing. So an example is the first law firm I worked at, there's a partner in an office near me, and he was this marathon guy. He ran marathons. And I'd never really known anyone that ran marathons before. He'd run these marathons, and it's pretty cool. It's a marathon. And I was like, wow, I could never do that. That's really far. And I'm a big guy, and it bugged me. And it bugged me so much that I ran a marathon the next year. And I didn't really train for it. And so And I remember because I had no injuries. A lot of people who trained had injuries during the training because they were running a lot. I had no injuries, but I ran like 4 miles, and then it was like a really sort of medium, paced walk after that. But I finished. But I remember I met a girl at the party after the marathon. I met this girl, and we were like comparing, notes. And she said, "So you ran?" Because she had walked. She'd done that speed walking thing. Anyway, she came in like 10 minutes ahead of me. and I remember I didn't lie. Like there's that moment where I was going to make up a time, and I was like, no, and I just told her, but actually, I don't know. Anyway.
So what was different? Because
My point is though that when I see things that I'm afraid of, like I want to go and do them, and I think that's a different kind of competitiveness. So once I was at a company, it wasn't cool enough to be on the exec team. I wanted to be a CEO with ultimate responsibility, and if you failed, it's all you. If you're the VP of biz dev at a company that fails, you can always point to the CEO and say, he was a fuck up, right? But if you're the CEO, it's really hard to do that. And I cherish that idea. So I wanted to become a CEO, and I knew I had weaknesses in management style and
what do you think those weaknesses are?
Going back to 10 years ago when I was thinking about this, I knew that I'm moody, short-tempered, have no patience, didn't know anything about technology, really. Like how to build products, how product teams actually work, no clue, right? I was just selling products at that point. So all kinds of problems. I was really good at enthusiasm and selling and just basically getting business models. Mm-hmm. And so I started to work on these different areas. And I went to a company in England, and I was a COO, and it was an experiment, and
Is that the one that you co-founded after Real Names?
No, this was just a company I joined. It
Okay.
was a company in England. But I realized I was never going to get good at that stuff. And I realized that, and I did actually become the CEO of a company, and it did okay, but I was always yelling at employees. I remember I can't understand incompetence or not working hard. I'm just really bad at that. And it's just not in me. And so I finally learned to just.
So stay on that for a second, because I've said
Yeah.
for the last couple of years, and I wrote a blog post about it a lot of years ago, you, to me, are probably one of the most driven people I've ever met. I mean, and you're relentless. If when it came to being the first person to get a scoop on a story, and if you lost a scoop, I mean, like hell hath no fury, like Mike Arrington, not getting a story and someone else getting
that
it.
relentlessness is my.
But where did that come from? Because if you don't have it in sports, and if you didn't have it with other things, where did that just competitiveness come from?
I don't know. If you're gonna do something, do it, right? I don't know. If I get into a TV show, I get into it. I remember I watched Battlestar Galactica. Remember the new Battlestar? This is good. So I ended up watching it all of it at once. It took a week, and I didn't do anything but watch that. And so that's the way I am.
Yeah.
But I'm not competitive with people. If we went, basically when I'd go jogging with my friend.
But
Pat,
you're
my
competitive
partner,
with other journalists.
I
When
feel
you were
like
at
you're trying to
Techcrunch,
lead. I feel like you're baby stepping me towards something that's
No.
therefore you're an asshole. It's we're getting towards it. So I'm circling around all this. I'm not competitive with other journalists in the sense that I want other journalists to succeed.
Yeah.
I just want to win.
But you don't want them to beat you.
Never on anything, not just in total, but on every single little thing, right? I want to be first. But
I remember one time we were hanging out at your house, and you were upset about the fact that you were always on the top of tech meme. It was just, you were building at that point a company, revenue scaling you, and still the number one thing that was most important to you is that Techcrunch was always the first thing on tech meme.
It always was. But I just wanted to be, if I broke 20 big stories in a row and then missed one, I'd feel like I was a loser. And that's not a strength. That's a strength in startups. It's not a strength as a human being. But, yeah.
And you want to work with people that have that same philosophy as well, too?
Depends. If you look at TechCrunch, the best thing I ever did was hire Heather Hardy to be CEO. She's the opposite of me in every way. She's kind, giving, loving, caring, patient. And getting her to join, it took 6 months to hire her. Getting her to join was the right thing. So she's very driven, but different than me every other way. When it came to hiring writers, I wanted writers. I didn't care much at all about them except that they were willing to work all the time. And they wanted to.
So talk about those couple years. There were 4 companies you were either went at or co-founded, 4 or 5 companies after you left law school, before you eventually started writing on Techcrunch. And what was that experience like for you?
I don't like wearing suits. You mind if I take this off?
Not at all.
What was the question?
How many years was it after you left law?
What am I supposed to do with this? Yeah, I'll put it right here. Somebody actually. No, leave it there. Leave it
Can
there.
we get somebody to hang this up on?
No,
that
because
thing?
absolutely not. My phone is
No.
in there, and I'm not letting. Yeah, no.
We're gonna just keep that over here then. How many years was it once you started going into tech before you? Because I think there was a year that you kind of just took off, right?
Why are we so interested in me and like every little thing that makes me tick? Like, what about just the community? And like, I always find that more interesting.
We'll get to that. But the thing about it is
we're
you're
half an hour in.
No, we'll get to it. The thing about it is you're one of the biggest personalities in tech, and
I don't
think
understand why.
I think what's important is for people to.
I don't understand why. I chronicled. I mean, I was a very mediocre would be a complimentary term, entrepreneur until TechCrunch, and those who can do, those who can't teach, et cetera. Like, not that I'd necessarily believe that, but I mean, being a blogger was my true calling. Like chronicling successful entrepreneurs, I'm very good at that. So I always found it more interesting to talk about them personally. We can keep talking about me if you want. I've never done this. It's a little awkward.
We'll keep doing this.
So what was the question that you were asking?
Just what was the biggest thing you learned about yourself in those years before you started TechCrunch, but after you had left law? I mean, did you feel like if you didn't sell a company, that was something you'd have to keep working at until you made it?
Sell a company?
Or just even have one that you considered to be successful, whatever the outcome was.
And
did you want to be top dog? You wanted to be the CEO at that time?
Yeah, but that was a false goal, I realized later, and gave up on it. Being a CEO, because you always report to somebody. Then you have a board of directors, and really you report to them the same way that other people report to their CEO. Your VCs report to their LPs. Until you're, like TechCrunch was, we had no VC backing. I had a CEO who I really didn't have to report to. Like the deal kind of unspoken rule was I could do whatever I wanted, and I didn't have to deal with anything other than what I wanted to. That's a nice place to be, right? She had to deal with everyone who reported into her. I was on the side doing whatever I wanted. That was a nice world to make for myself. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a CEO before that and realized it's not any different than being a different employee in the company. You always report to someone.
And so when you started, what was the process?
But I always wanted to win. So like with TechCrunch, with Real Names, like we talked about how like I was VP of Biz Dev, right? And then they made me VP of Sales because they wanted to go public. And Morgan Stanley said, you got to get up to $1 million of revenue a quarter. That was sort of the rule back in 98, 99. And so they said, well, let's put Mike in charge of sales. He'll get us there. I had no idea what I was doing. But I worked really hard. And that quarter, we got $2 million in revenue from a couple $100,000. Like I just made people do deals with me. I'd go to their office. And so I didn't, and I learned how to do it. And so same thing with TechCrunch. Like I didn't know what I was even doing, but I had to keep doing it all the time. But it wasn't healthy. I mean, I had the company in my house. I had a girlfriend. She literally left me, like moved away. I never didn't work. I was just working and sleeping. And that wasn't healthy. That wasn't good in the long run.
So why'd you do that?
Couldn't not do it. I loved, I always talk about like the entrepreneurs, like you want to follow your passion. And you want to do something you already enjoy doing. I've always loved startups. I've always loved entrepreneurs. And when I think about Steve Jobs, even before like his current sort of last decade of all the amazing things he did, even in the 90s when I met Steve Jobs, I was shaking. That was Harrison Ford or whatever movie star. It's always been that way to me. These guys that create something out of nothing. Way more interesting than anyone else on the planet.
So now that you're, it's been a full year since you sold TechCrunch. It's been a couple months since you've not been involved in it. When you look back on that, are you proud of everything that you accomplished? Do you feel a sense of pride? And if you had to do it over again, would you do it any different way?
I like the fact that I made enough money that I can do whatever I want the rest of my life in terms of working. And not
how much did you guys sell the company for?
30-ish.
And then how much did you make on the deal?
That's a personal question. It's not. That's too personal. But
you own
as
a very large
shareholder,
percentage of the company.
because we never raised venture money.
There was one original investor in TechCrunch, wasn't there? Wasn't it Keith or anyone else?
No, Keith Tier was the CEO of Real Names,
Yeah.
the first company before. He'd always been a mentor to me, always still
Okay.
is. And he and I had done Edgeo together, a company which no one's ever heard of, but raised $5 million. We started that before TechCrunch, and then when I started TechCrunch, the idea was that we were doing these things together, so he would have a piece of it. And
But no one put even a little bit of money in when you
no,
first
but
started?
it's a blog, it's a WordPress. I mean, it's free software. It's just you. What do you need money for? Right?
Got it.
It's not a real startup in that sense.
How did you, since you owned all the company?
But
when
wait, let's go back to the question because
Okay.
you said do I regret it? Would I do anything differently? So
Okay.
like I do like the fact that now I can decide what I do with my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to do something, I don't have to worry about paying rent or whatever. If I want to become,
Did you ever have to worry about paying rent?
Sure.
You
I was
did?
dead broke. I was in 2004. I lived in Manhattan Beach in an apartment about this big, and my girlfriend had a full-time job, which was great because I had I was broke, right? I'd get up around 10. I'd go surfing, and then I'd come home and I'd eat some food out of the refrigerator because I couldn't afford to go to the taqueria, which was $3.
But you could have got a job if you wanted. I mean, you'd an attorney at one
I
of the
did
top
get a
law
job.
firms.
No, I did get a job. But the point was, that we started Edgeo. I'm like trying to start a company. So.
Got it.
But no, I've been broke lots of times in my life. Yeah. So do I regret it? No, because of that. But I am sad to see TechCrunch no longer be under my influence and to not be part of it. That's just sad. I think anytime somebody builds a company and leaves it, even if it does well afterwards, I think it's sad.
When did you really fall in love with writing? Because one of the things I've always thought is that, not even in tech, but I think you've got one of the best written voices I've ever seen. I think you're just very clear, concise. You always know your point of view. You don't fluff around with bullshit words. And I think your voice is just, as far as a written editorialist, has always been one of my favorite. Is that something that you were good at when you were younger, or did you get a lot better at that through TechCrunch?
I remember at the law firm, I was doing corporate work, not litigation, so it was all contracts and deals. And the idea is you want to have a contract that reflects the actual deal between the parties to a T and has no fluffy language that can be misinterpreted later, because that just leads to litigation, right? So anytime you're sloppy with a contract, it's more likely you're going to have litigation. So they very rigorously train you to write clearly. Now, it's not elegant, fun-to-read prose, but you learn to get to the point and to say things exactly the right way. So it's sort of a rigorous training that I went through with that. And then I wrote a book on initial public offerings, and in the late 90s, it came in through Wilson Sonsini. A partner got it, and basically the deal was if I wrote the book, I could be a co-author. Right? Perfectly great deal for me. And so I ended up writing most of the book, and that was also, it was about 450 hours it took me. We billed all of our time. And that, again, was a process of writing something in more everyday language, and ended up reading a lot of the Dummies series books are very well written, actually, when you want to get information across very quickly. So I mirrored those a little bit. That's it. And I didn't
How
write
long
anything
in
for a
writing
while.
TechCrunch do you think it took till you really found your voice? Felt like, this is how I want to sound through my writing?
I think it took a while before I was willing to show my voice. The immediate feedback loop with blogs is that you trained over time to say and do certain things and not others, because it's like the electricity with the rat and the treat, right? It's like, oh, that hurt, oh, that hurt. And at some point you have to sort of say, screw it, I'm doing what I want, and take the pain.
Did you ever care about pissing people off? I mean, if you said something that somebody took offense to, were you just like, hey, that's part of my role as a...
That's a difficult, you talk about in your introduction, which is very nice, thank you. You say a lot of people think a lot of different things about you and all this. And I think it's hard because I think of who I am as a person, and I think I'm a good guy, right? I'm empathetic, I care about people, I want the world to be a happy place. And I know that a lot of people think I'm a real serious asshole. Like, wouldn't mind seeing
why
me
do you
run
think
a
they
red
think
car.
that?
Well, I understand exactly why. Because I lose my temper, I speak my mind, I sometimes am cruel before I have time to think about it. I'm human, right? But I'm human, I don't sort of stop and think about what I say always. Now that actually means a lot of page views, and it's a good thing that I'm that way. I couldn't be any other way, by the way. But I get why that leads to wow, he said that, he's a really big jerk. And then it's sort of, you're tainted forever. But I wish it wasn't that way, but it is. And I don't think I ever want to be different.
The thing I always found interesting is that I always thought it was really interesting that all the people that would complain about you would still want to be in your company and have your favor. So they would say something behind, like one of the things I always respected about you is, quite honestly, at times I've seen you be.
Yeah, but everyone's that way. You talk about people behind their back, saying you're nice to them in your face.
Yeah,
I do that too.
No, I'm about to give you a backhanded compliment. I've seen you be not nice to people that it's really bordering being an asshole, but I've seen you be that way across the board to everyone, and I've never seen you be a sycophant. And the same way you treat someone that will come up to you that you've never met, that may be a college student, is the same way you'll treat Mark Zuckerberg. You know,
so that's interesting. So the way I feel about myself, and gosh, I wish the world liked me more, is not that interesting in the end. I mean, it's interesting for me, less so for anyone else. But if you think about like how you act towards people, that is interesting. You see people, and I see it a lot, they come up and say, hey, Mike, love your work, big fan. And it's like really aggressively nice, and they really like me. And I know they're really feeling a lot of like towards me, whether they want something or not, right? But those same people can turn on you when you don't write back to them or pay attention to them or whatever. Suddenly they don't like you, and with the same. And so when somebody like is aggressively loving me, I actually have the same feelings of get the fuck away as I do with somebody who's aggressively hating me, because sometimes I go, they don't know me at all. Like, this is all going to turn on me. On the same note, when somebody aggressively doesn't like me, to some extent, I'm always willing to sort of revalue that relationship later on, because maybe they've grown or thought differently about me or just whatever it is. So I don't like any strong emotions that have no basis in anything. People who've literally never met me. And so I'm not that way. You know, I might be in awe of someone. I might, enjoy meeting, talking to, brilliant entrepreneurs. But I never do that. Sycophant. It's like I never do that. Like it just feels awkward to me to be gushing emotion towards someone that you don't know.
I've always thought that you've really valued. I mean, the first time I met you, you kind of blew me off, and I was trying to in some way stalk you that night because I was trying to make sure we got into.
When did we first meet?
I was finishing up my last year of grad school. It was at a party that was thrown at a restaurant in San Francisco. It's Cinema Paradiso. Is that what it's called? It was a restaurant in San Francisco.
I was at a party?
Yeah, it was a mixer. Loic threw it, and then afterwards, and I went up to you and I said hi, and I said that you actually wrote about us, and you kind of blew me off, and then we went to drinks. You went to drinks later that night.
What does that mean, kind of blew you off? I was like, yeah, great, and then but clearly body language wanted to get away?
Yeah, you didn't even give me any eye contact. Like, you didn't acknowledge my existence as a human being. And it made me feel like I had to try in some way to prove myself to you without being that overly aggressive, pushy person. So I just went to the bar that night and I bought drinks for everybody. And at some point during the night, you're like, oh yeah, I remember who you are. You actually got selected for the first round of the conference.
There's this. I wrote an article about. This is actually useful advice for anyone, but I wrote an article about meeting people and events and all that, and the worst time to say grab someone is right after they come off stage, right? Because they're shocked from the lights and they just want to get out, or how they did. The last thing they want to do is cut a deal with the new guy they're meeting right then. There's a time and place to approach people, and then you take the fact I'm very much an introvert who pretends to be an extrovert at times, but I'm really introverted. I'm at events where sometimes there's 20 people coming at me. It's a really awful experience, sort of, to try to pretend to care isn't whatever, to pretend to have enough energy to sort of listen, and then I have actually a bad hearing in one ear, and any kind of background noise I can't hear a thing. So sometimes I'm going and I can't hear a word. So I get terrified in these events, and I want to get out. And it has nothing to do with not giving a shit or thinking I'm awesome.
Do you feel like you test people? I feel in your interactions.
No, see, all of these weird motivations and this grand master plan.
No.
Most of my life is spent trying to before was trying to get alone so I could write and not piss people off. That was it. Managing downsides. So how much do I have to talk to someone so they don't hate me? Or how do I not even go to my own events so that people don't have the experience you had where I blow them off? How sad is that? I can't even hang around with entrepreneurs because I know I'm going to make them upset because I'm not going to.
So who are the entrepreneurs that you look up to and respect the most?
I can't think of a single entrepreneur right now. I keep looking at Yossi, just to go back to your other question, and Yossi's the opposite. So Yossi's always in the middle of the crowd. And he talks to everyone. I remember the first time I met Yossi, it was 2005 at the Web 2.0 conference. And he didn't know who I was, but he spent quite a bit of time just talking with me. And that's why everyone loves him, because he genuinely is extroverted and caring and awesome. And I'm just not that way. I just want to be alone.
But just even accomplishment-wise, personality aside, who are the entrepreneurs that you look up to and respect the most, and why? What about them is it that they've earned your ultimate respect?
So I only care about entrepreneurs who've done interesting things. I respect anyone that tries. I wrote this story. I wrote this. There's Yossi actually started this whole thing when at one of our conferences he talked about the man in the arena. And you guys know what I'm talking about with the man in the arena? Well, I had never heard this before Yossi brought it up. And who was the original one? Roosevelt? Yeah. Basically said, you should just look up man in the arena if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it's a speech he gave that talked about if you're not in the arena fighting, really anyone who's criticizing you has no right to do that. And it started this whole notion of like anyone who's an entrepreneur, you're either an entrepreneur or you're not. And if you are, you're in a club that's awesome. And even if you fail, and even if you just completely miserably fail, you're in that same club as Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all those guys. And if you're not, if you've never tried it, like when I did the marathon, even though I knew I'd suck at it, you always wonder if you can do it. You're not in the club, so just go do it. What do you really have to lose? I always try to convince people that. But you say, who do I admire the most? So I admire the most failed entrepreneur a lot. But if you look at the cultural impact that in our lifetimes that some of these entrepreneurs have had, it's sort of, it's amazing. And Steve Jobs is absolutely on the very top of that list. He's a list of his own in terms of bringing delight to the world. Couldn't care less if he yelled at employees. Couldn't care less if he wanted tirades. It's hard to get along with.
So you care about what they accomplished?
Only. What else matters, right? In the end, whether he yelled at people, everyone gets yelled at. I mean, if he starts murdering people, sure, there's a line, but just being angry with someone at work is like somehow means all of your accomplishments are null and void. So, those are the guys. Those are the kinds of guys that I admire. Yeah.
Who do you, what kind of personalities do you have the most difficult? Is it just people that aren't driven and don't get stuff done that you don't like working with? Or are there other kinds of personalities? I mean, there seems to be a lot of conflict.
I don't work with them for long. If it's a bad situation, I'll either quit the job or terminate the person. I'll only work with people I like to work with.
Looking back on TechCrunch, other than, and we can go answer way, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I probably wouldn't have done it. I mean, the pound of flesh that was extracted is hard to take.
You probably wouldn't have sold it, or you probably wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have
You've probably done it to start with.
Really?
I mean, really, like
Yeah.
in the last 5 years, you're now one of the most famous people in all of tech. Time said you're one of the most influential people right in the world. You've got all the money to do.
They always add a blogger to that list because they want bloggers to blog about it.
But you've got all the money to do all the things. Are you really saying that if you had to do it all over again, you wouldn't do it for what the cost?
Absolutely. Like this
What
is like
would
you don't
you
get
what
that
would you have
about
done
me?
instead?
Do you understand that like when 1,000 people a day say you're a racist or I hate you, fuck you, I hope you die, like it's hard. Like even if you ignore it, it absolutely takes something out of you. It turns you into a different person. I remember the first time someone criticized me with TechCrunch. It was like, gosh, wish you hadn't wrote about my startup before it launched. And I lost it. I'm so sorry, oh my God. It's like criticism, thin skin, and now it's like people are gonna aim, tanks at me. It seems like I'm fine. But, I mean, that's hard. It changes who you are. I wrote a post recently about like how much weight I gained in 6 years. And, the process of now reversing lifestyles and the sleep problems I've had. Absolutely not worth it. Absolutely. I don't give a shit about it. Being famous, what is that even? I'm not famous. I mean, if Ashton Kutcher walked in here right now, who's actually is famous, that's famous, right?
Yeah, but you're famous. You're famous to everyone in this room. Everyone in this room reads you on a daily basis. I mean, there's a reason why we have 700 people here instead of 200.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I don't understand why 700 people would want to come and listen to talk about my life. I understand why 700 people want to come and talk about
what would you have done
themselves,
instead in that time? I mean, are you really honestly saying if you had to do it all over again, you wouldn't have done it?
Sure. Absolutely. Of course, I don't have the ability to undo it, So if I
Are
actually
you just saying
had
you
the
want the
ability,
same outcome without it being as hard, or you don't want the outcome that you have today?
Where are you going with this? Like, it's pretty clear. Like, I regret the fact that everyone thinks I'm a dick. Right? I genuinely care about startups. I genuinely care about people. I genuinely love that I was born at a time to watch this kind of transformation in our culture happen. But yeah, it's hard. You know, that's not a woe is me thing. It's just change who I am.
Are there any conflicts that you've had in business and negotiations or anything else in the last 5, 10 years? If you had to go over and do it again, you would do it differently? And if so, which ones? I mean, would you have done the way that you left AOL differently?
Yeah, Crunchpad sucked because it was like this really fun project that we were working on, and we had this partner, and they seemed to love us, and we loved them. And
I've never known you to sue other people. I mean, that was
that pissed me off because it was such a like trust relationship, and it was such a. It turned out there was like 6 months of fraud going on where they were like planning on fucking us and planning on me getting angry enough to write a post, and like that would spur their, their press, and that really sucked. So that actually like I don't really trust that sort of things like that happen. You don't really trust people anymore.
Had you sued anybody before that? I mean, obviously as an attorney, but personally, had you? So they really pushed you over the edge as far as how upset you got about that deal.
Oh yeah, like I wanted to murder them. Yeah, like murder them. That's the whole point of like the law, right? Is to stop people from murdering each other. So, it really, right? It's to stop people from using violence to solve their disputes. So.
Got it. So going back, so talk about that period of time. When you sold to AOL, did you have a big earnout as part of that? Did they say you had to stay around for 2-3 years?
No, it was. So the original deal, we came up with an agreement around the price really quick. It was Tim Armstrong called me. He said, "Hey, so I want to buy you."
Let me actually go back a little bit because.
Wow, I was just going to tell you a great story.
All right, let's go on with a great story.
No, it's all right.
No, great story. That's it. Who wants to hear a great story? Yeah.
Well, in terms of how a deal actually can play out, but no, I don't know if I feel comfortable. Like I was just sort of in the moment going to say it. So, all right. So Tim called me because Ron Conway told him you should buy Techcrunch. Ron Conway's an amazing guy, by the way. He helps out companies. He's not. He never invested in us. Because we never took investors, but he helps out companies all the time. He just, he knew I was getting a little tired and wanted to sell, and so he told Tim, he's like, "You should buy Techcrunch." And so Tim called me up and he goes, "We want to buy it." He goes, I think you're going to want like $100 million. So no, I think I'd take significantly less than that. And he goes, "What do you want?" I got 25, 30. It's like, yeah, let's do that deal. And so that's great when the CEO of AOL agrees. You can get that deal done very quickly. Then you don't have to. There's a whole ton of negotiation that goes into normal deals before that you get to that point that we skipped. So that was really nice. But it was going to be part stock, and then we spent a whole lot of time looking into ways to hedge the risk from AOL stock, which you can do if they'll allow you.
How do you do that?
Derivatives. You buy options or sell options, buy puts, whatever. Basically you just hedge your downside risk. And it was like we were insisting on the ability to do that to the point where they said, "Why don't we just give you cash?" So it ended up being an all-cash deal, and it was 60% up front, 40% over time. So I don't know if that's standard or not, but it's fine. It wasn't an earnout though; it was just based on staying.
When you did the deal, what did you feel? Did you feel pride, relief? I mean, I saw you soon afterwards, and I honestly couldn't tell if you were happy or not.
I don't know what I was. That was right before I went to a sleep center and figured out I have this terrible sleep apnea, don't sleep, got no REM sleep for 5 years. I was a bit in shock, I think. It's all a hazy period to me. So I felt something.
What was it like working for Techcrunch as an employee and not
Exactly the same.
Was?
Nothing changed.
So
Still wrote exactly what I wanted to write, did what I wanted to do, made fun of AOL every once in a while just to make fun of them. They never bothered us.
What's the deal with you and Engadget? I mean, there just seems a lot of animosity there between you and
Engadget always had they were always just pissed that we got we broke some. There's a period of time when I was doing Crunchpad stuff that I had really deep sources in China, and I was breaking some amazing stories in the hardware space, which is normally their world. So I had exact numbers of Kindles, right? Stuff that analysts were calling me to where did you get these numbers and stuff. I think that kind of pissed them off because they got a little snarky with us. And like in the blogging world, they'd reblog our stories without attribution. That's like the biggest sin. Right? Somehow that involves a lot of emotion. I look back, it looks silly. Anyway, the whole Crunchpad thing though, they trashed the Crunchpad from start to finish every day. It was ridiculous, sad, stupid project. But as soon as this company sort of screwed us over and launched it, they couldn't love it enough. And I just felt it was very personal. So that was it. That's what I accused them of. I just felt like they were sort of they were emotionally negative towards us for no reason.
Who are the tech writers that you read? I mean, do you
It
read
all seems very petty now, and with hindsight. But those are. It's hard. It's hard when the press.
Do you think you have a thick enough skin to be at front and center? I mean, do you think you take things too personally?
Oh yeah, I have many flaws. Yeah, I take things very personally. Yeah, I don't know how to take it too personally. I don't know how to change it. So,
who are the tech readers that you read? Who do you? I mean, when you go, who's on your RSS feed? What websites do you open up?
TechBeam.
But that's an aggregator. That's not a voice.
Well, I'll click through the stories that I see there that I like. Got it. I don't read a lot of tech news anymore.
There's not, but there.
I'm getting information before the tech news. Like the information I get and most VCs get is stuff it's way more interesting than the tech news, right? Your inbox and who's starting what. It's months away from being in any tech news. So.
And if any of you happen not to know, Mike's now blogging on uncrunch.com, which never made sense to me why you wanted to keep Crunch and whatever you're doing next, but God bless it. And
why doesn't it make sense?
Because I think I told you this, I think that if 5 years from now you still want to, if that's the platform you're writing on, I don't think you're going to want to be connected to Techcrunch. I don't think you're going to want to be uncrunched. I didn't understand why you just do it.
Why wouldn't I want to be connected to Techcrunch? Part of who I am.
But I don't think you'll be part of who you are in 5 years from now or 10 years from now the way it is today.
Why not? Words get their own meaning. Like, what does the word Engadget mean? It doesn't mean anything, but it means something, right? Google, these words, uncrunch becomes its own word eventually. It just, it's do what you want. I almost called it unpaid blogger. Now that I think would have been a mistake. I think I had a shelf life of 2 weeks. But yeah. Besides criticizing the name, what was the point of that? Like why am I even blogging?
No. What I was really stemming from is
that goes to the
who
thick
you're
skin
reading.
comment. Like, why don't you like my name? Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. I read it though.
The name's
I like
good
the post. So talk about what happened that you weren't part of TechCrunch anymore. How did that all go down?
Why? I told you before, like we can talk about anything you want, right? No, but like you're really like digging into like every negative thing. Like, is there a reason? Like, is there something you want to get to?
No, I think your story is interesting, and I think the experiences that you went through. I mean, it's actually pretty telling. I mean, a lot of people here are going to sell a company, and at some point are no longer going to be part of that company anymore.
This is also why I don't like doing these things. So there's like two kinds of people. Like sometimes, like with the racism stuff, I found this. Where like there's people who've got like white guys, right? They go out and say, we really need to do more. Like there's this, we all need to like do more to get more minorities, and they don't. These people like have done nothing to spread diversity, and they have no intention of doing. But they know, but by saying that, it gets the spotlight off of them and go on. But why do that? So I'll always answer honestly. But why always? I mean, if we only focus on like the negative stuff, sure, I'll tell you. But what's the point? Like, there's so many great things going on.
So what are the things that you're most excited about in the tech space right now?
Like investing in new startups and like seeing these entrepreneurs who are. It's funny that like, the entrepreneurs are the same age, but as I get older, they seem younger and younger, right? And these kids are now starting these companies and like, and getting to know them and hearing about what they want to get done and knowing exactly where I can help and where I need to stay away because VCs can do a lot of damage if they try to over-control companies. And that's the exciting stuff to me. And
so how do you know when you want to do a deal? Like what are the qualities in entrepreneurs that you respect the most?
It's like I don't know. Like it's like you're in a store and you see something, you're like, I want to buy that. Like I don't know what it is. Did you ever see that TED Talk? Probably not. I randomly saw this TED Talk by this guy. He designs like things, and he talked about beauty, the objective nature of beauty. And you guys know what I'm talking about? Do anybody know his name? Anyway, really cool. Like talks. He shows like visually things that thing people have designed and how it's just beautiful. It's just perfect. Same thing with startups. Sometimes you just see it and you're like, I want into that. Nothing you have to tweak or do. You just know that there's a really good chance that's going to be something, really beautiful.
But break that down. What does that mean? I mean, if someone here is going to come and pitch you, I mean, how do they get your interest such that you want to invest in their company?
Yossi is out. Out. That's not a good sign. It's not his fault. It means like we are boring the audience to the point where Yossi already.
He is jet lag. He emailed me yesterday.
I'm sorry, Yossi. I was simply noting that we are not being very entertaining if you're falling asleep. What were we talking about? Startups.
Yeah. How many folks here are currently trying to raise money for their company? Raise your hand. And how many of you that are trying to, and don't say anything about this, how many of you that are trying to raise money would be interested in taking money from the Crunch Fund? Keep your hands raised if you're interested. Okay. So we've got at least 20 people in this audience that want to be in a position to raise money from you. What do they need to do in their product? What do they need to demonstrate in the team?
Is anyone raising money that doesn't want to raise money from us? No, really. Why?
Who raised? Stand up for a second. What's your name? All right, Ian. Ian, why wouldn't you want to raise money for Mike Arrington? Tucker?
Ironically, I might be, but it's just too much visibility. I mean, there's so much drama that goes along with it. It's just too much explanation.
I'm full of shit?
Him.
No, well, his point I think is that taking money from me might involve like being swept up in my dramatic life. I think that's what you're saying.
Exactly.
And that sometimes that's great, but sometimes it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't
It's a
disagree with
double-edged
that.
sword.
Pardon?
Drama is a double-edged sword. So drama can be a good thing. Drama can also be a bad thing. It's just too much explanation. It's just, I'm actually with you. I could give a shit about all the negative stuff. It really doesn't matter. I mean.
So let me tell you this. I actually almost every week I go, you know what? I'm gonna have a period of no drama for a while. I'm just gonna like chill out and every week. And then like the CNN thing, the I hate black people thing, was like I did this interview. I thought it's fine. Like I said something stupid at the beginning, but like later on I talked about other like all the entrepreneurs I've invested in and what I really think. I go, it's on balance. That's gonna be great. Like no problem. And it was like crushing. Where my mom's like, I'm so disappointed in you, son. And so like sometimes I just sort of. I really don't go, I need to pick a fight today. And I really try not to. But I get that. I get why that can be a negative.
Do you feel like are you gonna be out there lobbying for your companies once you make investments in that? I mean, you're investing $100,000 to $250,000 in the company, right? You're catching them early stage?
Techcrunch is, I'm just going off on a tangent. Techcrunch, they still I'm no longer an employee of AOL, right? I no longer get paid by Techcrunch. I no longer write for Techcrunch. They still like, are you an investor? We need to know because we have to disclose it. Like, why? Why do you have to disclose it now? Like, it's my problem. And I'm not going to tell you that. I think they're kind of digging to try and see. But I can promote the hell out of my startups now. I'm like, I have no reason not to. Like, I played by the rules, didn't matter. Now I promote companies. There's a company called Batch. I wrote a really awesome story about it. I'm not an investor, so I'd still disclose if I am. But I can say exactly what I really think, and I don't have to worry about toning it down because I'm an investor. And it's great.
How much are you investing typically in companies out of Crunch Fund?
We invested $250. That was the most.
And you raised $20 million for it, right?
30. Yeah, 20. Then we increased it, but we didn't.
Who put in the money into Crunch Fund?
AOL put in 40%, and then most of the rest is.
A lot of high-profile VCs put in though too, right? Did they put in checks of like $1 million each or?
Yeah, there's 8 or 9 VCs that we raised money from. Austin Ventures, Sequoia, Kleiner, Cell.
And they do that because they thought that you would have an access to deal flow that other people don't?
I think, I don't know. I mean, officially they did it because they think I'm going to get a proper venture return on the money. But the guys with $1 billion fund, do they really care about $1 million, $2 million investment? It's unclear that they do. They certainly don't want to lose it. But I think there's this relationship I now have with the firms that's very clearly working out very well, where I will invest in these startups and then I'll bring these deals to them. They have really deep access to our deal flow.
But if you have 7 or 8 firms, how do any of them have a competitive advantage? I mean, how does that work?
Well, half the battle is just getting them in, right? I mean, even Sequoia and Kleiner don't see every deal. And, and I know them, I know the partners, and I know the firms, and I can tell which deals are going to be attractive to them, and I can really help guide the companies. And it's happening a lot. Like there's almost constantly 2 or 3 deals where I'm getting them in front of the right VCs, which they could get in front of in another way, but I'm bringing in the VCs, and they're getting a lot of deals done.
Do you ask for a board seat?
No, I don't want, never, no.
You don't want to be on any boards?
No.
And are
No,
you
that's just liability.
Are you typically the first professional money into a company?
No, sometimes, but not.
And
There's deals like Inspirato where Kleiner brought us in, and it was, I think there was a lot, I don't know, was it 15, 20 million? It was like plus 100,000 from us. That was kind of cool.
So,
and those are new deals. Like those deals haven't really happened before, so they're bringing us into later stage, and I think there's a reason they want us in. I could speculate, but I think there's a lot of reasons, but I like doing those deals.
what percentage of the deals do you go in a convertible note versus just an equity share?
Almost
right away?
all early stage deals are notes, and the reason is it's just easier to get them done. It's a very easy legal process, 2 or 3 page document. An actual price venture round is a pain in the ass to get done legally.
So talk to us, what are your thoughts right now of, I mean, this seems to me like it's a tough time to start off being an investor because valuations are very high, and if I had to bet on the macro environment of the economy, I would say in the next year or 2 things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. So how are you thinking about what kind of valuations companies are asking for now that you're investing in them professionally?
So a lot of this is just me regurgitating things that I've been taught from a lot of the VCs that have invested in us, because I'm still learning. Like Ben Horowitz told me from Andreessen Horowitz when we raised money, he said, remember, the only thing that matters is that the winners, and by winners he means the Facebooks that come along every decade that you're in. As long as you're in, it doesn't matter what else you do. You can spend the rest of the money on anything you want. You can literally throw it away because that 1,000x return is going to, more than make up for everything.
But does that work for a microcap fund like you have? I mean, if you're putting in...
Sure, if you get in. If
you're
miss
not
it,
going to get
you're
diluted
done.
so many times down that will that one winner really carry the rest of the fund?
Let's say early advisors to Facebook got 1 or 0.2%. It's worth, even after dilution, it's worth $150 million. Yes, it's fine if you get into those deals. If you get into the Google and then the Facebook, Microsoft earlier on, it absolutely doesn't matter how much you get diluted.
How many deals have you done already?
There's guys that invested $25,000 in LinkedIn that returned $4 million. Imagine, that was a little bit later on too. These deals, when they have massive exits, that's all you need is that one deal. So anyway, that's one school. The other piece of advice is, make sure you spread it out. You get a lot of investments, and you do it over different. They call it vintages, because 1 year might be a wipeout just because of the economy, and that you need to make sure you're not in a wipeout year. And so a lot of companies that got investments in 2007 ended up not doing well because.
So are you a tough negotiator? I mean, are you?
No, I hate doing that. That's why we don't like to price rounds. So we like to jump into rounds.
So you're more just finding the deal and saying, okay, I want to come in on what you got going on.
Yeah, although because we do so much work with the companies, often we ask for advisor shares, and often we get them. And so we're actually getting different price than everyone else. But it's not a hard negotiation.
And that's for some help that you'll provide going forward in the future? I mean, what are you doing for that?
Well, VCs there's sort of 3 things, right? They add marketing. So if you get funded by Kleiner Perkins, Sequoia, Excel, any one of our LPs, which are all the best firms that ever were, that means there's a marketing, it's a benefit from leveraging their brand. The second thing they're going to do is give you advice, which means PR help, strategic help with M&A, et cetera. And the third thing they're going to do is they're going to fuck you up, right? They're going to make you do things that you don't want to do. Raise money you shouldn't have raised, lay people off, hire too many people, whatever. And that's a very real cost, which means a lot of VCs are famous for being horrible. And so those are the 3 things. So I think that we have a brand that matters right now in very early stage companies. I think we help them a lot, and hopefully we don't hurt them.
Do you find there any irony in the guy that didn't ever raise venture capital and always push that away and now being the venture capitalist?
You mean as in me?
Yeah.
But I did raise venture capital. I started a company in 2000 called HX that raised $18 million from Draper Fisher. Really awesome, because it was the Draper Fisher board member, who was a friend of mine, ended up firing me near the end, and they had a 2x liquidation preference. It didn't really matter that I got fired because we ended up selling it right then anyway. Sold it for $32 or $33 million. They had a 2x liquidation preference.
Is that the one you said you made enough money to buy a Porsche?
Yeah, well, I got 150 grand because they took 18 million times 2 liquidation preference.
So you co-founded the company, or you started it, and you raised how much money?
18.
And you sold for how much money?
32, 33.
And how much at the end of the day did you make out of it?
I think they let us split it like 400 or 500 grand. And it was only because we could have blocked the deal. But if we blocked the deal, the company would have gone under. We would have been breaching our fiduciary duty anyway. Probably could have been sued. So the deal had to happen, but it would have been $0 to us because the you understand liquidity preference. In liquidity preference, if you have a 1x liquidity preference, it means when you sell, the investors get their money back before anyone else gets anything. If you have a 2x, which are rare now, it means they get double their money back. But they were very common back then. So that sucked. I got burned. I hated it. I hated VCs. But sometimes you have to raise money from them.
How many deals have you done so far already?
20.
You've done 20 deals. And how many deals overall? I mean, when will you spend the fund? When we be done?
Well, we increased the size to 30 million, so it's a 3-4 year fund. Yeah, including some money for follow-on investment.
What are the companies that you invest in that you're most excited about? What are the ones that you?
All of them. It's like asking which,
So just pick 2 or 3 that you do you think are interesting?
Nope. I love them all the same.
Okay, there you go. For the folks here that are looking to raise money, because we've had a lot of panels about raising money. We've had venture capitalists, and we've had folks like Mark Suster that was an entrepreneur and then became a venture capitalist. But I think you are the closest to being an entrepreneur and then immediately switching sides. What advice do you have for everyone here that's looking to raise? How many folks here are looking to raise up to $1 million for their company? And how many people are looking to raise a venture round of $2 million or more?
Remember questions too.
What?
7:45.
I will do, yeah. So what advice do you have for these folks as they're going out to raise money? What are the things how do they need to present their companies? What do they need to accomplish? What do they need to do to put themselves in the best position to raise money for their?
So you're asking different. One question is how to pitch, which I'm not going to answer that. It's a boring answer, but pitch well. And then, I'm happy to answer that offline. When it comes to who do you want to raise from, how much, and all that, there's sort of 2 things. Like one is, you only want to raise as much as you need because dilution really, really counts. Especially, your first round dilution, you got 2 more rounds at least before you're going to make any money in a liquidity event. And, if you only own 10% of the company, at the end, you're not going to make that much money. So dilution really matters. So you need to be careful about over dilution. But the other piece of advice, which is sort of opposite to this, is I see some people be too careful about valuation and to the extent where they'll insist on, say, an uncapped note. And we've invested in one, but their uncapped notes are ugly because you don't know what price you're paying for the stock. And you'll end up losing, say, in one case I saw SV Angel, Ron Conway, not participate in a company's round because of an uncapped note. The value of having Ron was so huge. They should have not done that just to get him in. And there's certain times you want certain investors, so don't be too greedy on that. So you got to find the right balance. Sometimes, a company's going to be successful no matter who the investors are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you raise money, don't raise money from a bank, you're gonna do great. There's companies like YouTube that probably wouldn't have made it if they hadn't been backed by Sequoia, for example. And it really matters in those cases. So depends on which kind of company you are.
And your plan is to raise a bigger fund after this one?
No. Okay. No, in fact, that would be, it'd be terrible because, VCs don't want to fund us so that we can eventually move up to a size of a fund that's competitive with them. They would have never funded us. But I also don't want to do that. So if you look at Conway and some of the other angels, they perpetually have these smaller funds. First round's another one. They keep doing the same deal sizes. I think that's fun. The VCs that have billion-dollar funds make so much money on the fees that it's just a whole nother world. It's not that I find that dishonest. I just don't find that very fun. I think actually, where you're small funds, where you're making money only if you make really good investments, I'm happy to do that the rest of my life.
All right. Let's open questions up to the audience. Just word of warning, since Michael clearly has no problem telling me I ask dumb, stupid questions, I'm sure he will say the same of you.
You ask great questions.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. Let's jump in. I try to ask the same kind of questions you do. I try to ask, when you do interview somebody, you ask the things that everybody thinks about, and that's try to emulate you.
Amazing.
So let's jump in. If you got a question, raise your hand. We'll bring a mic runner by. You got it. Stand up. Please say who you are, and then go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Tammy Reese, person who wanted to help you with your jacket.
Thank you.
You said that if you could do it all over again, you wouldn't have done Techcrunch. What do you wish you had done?
Question.
I wish that I had started Facebook in 2005. I can think, if I could go back 5 years and do anything I wanted, I can think of any number of startups that would have probably done very well that I would have done. Yeah. Or, it's so hard to say I wouldn't. Whatever. I don't know. Dumb question. I'm kidding. It's just a hard question to answer. I can, if I actually had the ability to go back and undo it, would I? I don't know.
You would want to be part of a startup.
Yeah, I love startups. Yeah, always. Yeah.
Next question.
You know what
Run over
companies, things actually get done in startups. Big companies, the biggest company I've ever been in is AOL, which isn't that big, and it's just, my God. You know, like 3 different like HR reps for whatever it is you need to call about. And it's just amazing how little gets done in these companies. And I think it's just, organizing humans is difficult. But a startup, things get done. Or you go to business. That's what I like. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Karen with Better Works. If anyone wants great perks at work, come see me. I'm also a former attorney, aspiring entrepreneur. 2 quick questions for you.
Should you say you're an aspiring entrepreneur if you're saying what company you're at also? Is that a good pause page? Is that okay? Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
learning from the best.
That was a little mean.
So 2 quick questions. What are like a couple mistakes you made that like were your best lessons you learned? And then what are 3 technology trends that you're most excited about? Thanks.
I don't know about mistakes. I mean, there's so many. Trends I'm excited about.
Don't skip over that. Give one mistake that you learned an important lesson from.
That's. Nah. I think that's not a good question for me to answer right now. I mean, if I'm going to be truthful, I'm only going to be truthful. It's just not. It gets too personal, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 3 trends. I like network effects, and I feel very strongly about network effects in terms of like, you look at the companies, the really successful ones, they tend to have network effects on their side. And if there is only, Groupon to me doesn't have one, even though sometimes people say it does. Facebook it's almost as perfect as the telephone when you talk about an example of a network effect. So that's something I'm looking for when I look for beauty in a startup. The other thing I like is like costs. The business can grow without costs getting out of control. Like, businesses like Pandora scare me. And I use it as an example because it was successful anyway. But, they had a period where their costs were getting a little out of control. And a lot of businesses we look at, their costs don't go up at all as their revenues increase. So things like that. Love mobile, but everybody has a mobile startup right now. So there's a lot of mud to wade through to find anything interesting in there. So, yep.
Thanks. Take the next question over here.
Hi, Mary, I'm a student, and...
Mary, can you stand up?
Sure. I was wondering, based off the startups you have seen, could you tell us a little about CEOs who don't have a programming background, and your advice for people like that?
That don't have a technical background?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen some CEOs who are have product background, even though they're not necessarily engineers, that are it's as if they were, right? There comes a point in management where you're not coding anymore anyway, and you need so there are people, for startups, I see this a lot, and it's one of the hardest questions to answer when somebody wants to start a company, but they have nothing, they can't code. It's really hard to find an engineer, and it's hard to convince them. And so it's hard to raise money, it's hard to find the engineers, it's hard to get the product launched. I've seen it happen in a couple of circumstances, but the one thing, there's this thing called founder dating, I think it's called that Charles River Ventures puts on, Sargur. At least he puts it on in the Bay Area. Not very often though, but it's sort of like speed dating, but it's for, founders to go to, and I know people find people that way. Actually, there should be more of those. They should be having those all the time. I would probably go to the effort to put them on if I thought about it. But it's hard. If you're building a tech company, you need some tech. So,
Well, we'll go to the next question in a second. What questions do you have for the audience? What are you curious? I mean, what do you think of? I didn't ask. What do you think of?
Well, I want to know what people think about this Zynga article, and the spread of this notion of we're all being overworked right now. It's funny because it's very.
And you basically said, stop whining. Just know.
I look at these people, and it's like these people, as in these employees who are supposedly crying, and they're being fed free organic food. They're getting free acupuncture, free dental, free doctor. They have doctors come in. They're under a lot of performance stress, but I don't get it. Okay, so quit, But how can you complain that it's like, oh my God, I have to work a lot? And this sort of gets to the grouchy old man thing. Heather at Techcrunch and I used to complain that like, sometimes we'd hire people and they were gone very quickly, so it's nobody's currently.
And Heather
Techcrunch,
really matched
but
her work ethic. I
it's
mean,
like,
she had a crazy work
yeah.
ethic.
It's like, why don't kids these days want to work? You know, when I was, I worked out of law school, it's like I was working, all the time. And these kids today, they want life balance and all this. And maybe it's just that I'm old, right? And generational difference, like music these days, right? But it seems to me that a lot of times, like these kids get out of school and like with this notion that life's going to be handed to them somehow, when it really isn't. Like no matter what you think, life is never handed to you unless you have rich parents. You get extremely lucky, right? And so you have to work hard, and I don't get it. So I'd love to know what the audience thinks. Like, am I just wrong? Like, is there something here where like, no, you work 8 hours, but you work hard and you get it in, and somehow you're successful? So I've never seen that work.
Wait, so who's speaking right now? Let's give him the mic real quick.
Hi, I have the mic.
No, wait, someone was just
There's
saying something.
I have the mic, so I'll ask my question.
I want to hear this comment though. There's something.
Hang on a second. Let us get you a mic. So, because Mike already said he's got bad hearing. I don't want him to strain himself.
So when I saw the article, I emailed 2 of my friends at Zynga just the other day, and I said, you guys are the hardest working people in Silicon Valley, because the truth of the matter is most people who work for, let's say, bona fide companies in Silicon Valley are there for stock options, and they get the stock options whether or not they're the A-plus player. So my sense is that in Silicon Valley, Zynga works 40% harder than the average person, because most of the people in companies in Silicon Valley are already trying to start their own company and thinking about something that's not their job. Yeah. So one of my buddies who's at Zynga is a former investment banker, and he said it's the only place in Silicon Valley that matches what he did when he was in banking. And as a former banker, I kind of agree.
Great.
What do you think about the tech scene down here in LA?
Oh, it's amazing. Never seen a smarter group of good-looking people in my life.
Fair deal.
It's better. It's like Seattle.
Have you done an LA deal yet? I know you're looking at them, but have you done an LA deal yet?
I don't know.
You will do one, right?
We haven't, said nothing from LA. No, there's some companies down here I really want to invest in, I'll tell you that.
What are the companies you want to invest in?
Some people. Some people I met last night, actually.
I mean, besides Docstoc, of course. Do you remember I actually I offered you after the first Techcrunch conference, like, I'd love for you to come on.
Wherever you're going with this,
No. I'm saying, I'd love for you to come on as a board advisor, and you said, I can't, Jason, because then I couldn't write about you anymore. And I wasn't sure if that was a blow-off or not.
A little bit. It is hard. Like, I wanted as few conflicts of interest. I only invested in 3 or 4 companies, before. And it was really mostly very, very close friends where it would have been really insulting to say no.
Got it.
Yeah, but I think the startup scene down here, it's a lot like Seattle, where it's not the central theme of the city. And so you really have to try a little harder to network.
So my thesis, and
I think that it's good when people do try harder to network.
I've always said that
events like this.
In the Bay, they're much better technologists and build much better products, but I don't always think are the best at knowing how to build a business and make money.
Why do you say they make better products there than they do here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because the amount of technical talent and the amount of product talent.
There's so many more companies there that you're thinking about the winners, but there are a lot of crappy companies there too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think the companies out of New York, LA, Austin, and Seattle are just as good on average as the companies out of Silicon Valley. There's just so many more there.
Are you going to stay based up in Silicon Valley for the foreseeable future?
I live in Washington.
Oh.
I live in Seattle. I don't go anywhere near that place. It's very intense. Like, I like dipping my toes in, but I'm there all the time. I go crazy. But I don't know. We don't have a website. Like, we're not really based anywhere. We're just meeting people and investing, and that's what matters. So,
okay. Yeah. Let's take more questions.
Hi, I'm Mark Landay, Dynamic Synergy Executive Recruitment. My question is, if you want to be featured in TechCrunch, what's the best approach to be featured in your
you should ask TechCrunch
publication?
Not my job anymore.
And when it was?
You want press to write about you, have a story to tell. Be interesting. If you're a minority founder or a really young founder, like the things around the edges of the startup can sometimes make or break the press. Who you raise money from, something interesting has to happen if your product doesn't speak for itself.
But the other thing too is you really respect founders and CEOs reach out to you directly. And I mean, you wrote a post about, the second post you wrote about us is I told you how much money we're going to raise before it's done. And you wrote a headline saying, entrepreneur counts his chickens before it's hatched. And then kind of went on to say, like, you know, here's what people do. They put themselves out there. And I was a little bit of risk, but then we got that angel round closed, and you wrote up a follow round, or Techcrunch did, saying they actually, you know, got that done. And I think you respected the fact that, you know, I just was persistent, and I tried to, as the founder, you know, co-founder, try to
the
reach out to you.
persistence thing, I don't like to encourage that, right? I mean, it's like sometimes it's, I mean, with TechCrunch, it's like we'd write about certain stories to get page views, and then we'd write about companies because we love them. So sometimes with startups, we wrote about them just because we wanted them to get some attention.
But also, I didn't commit you directly. I mean, orally, I reached out to orally, and then
I'm
orally
speaking in generalities. You're speaking specifically about something going on with Docstoc that sounds like you're a little annoyed with me. And I loved Docstoc and continue to love Docstoc, but I don't even know what you're talking about.
I'm not annoyed, I promise. Let's go to the next question.
I do apologize, though.
No, there's nothing to apologize for.
Okay, well, in case I do need to, I apologize for everything I've ever done to make you stressed out. Did I actually write entrepreneur counts chickens before they hatch?
Yeah, I think that's the headline.
That must have been.
I thought it was really cool. I mean,
It's a
I was just thankful. Honestly, I was just thankful for the fact that you were writing about us at all. I mean, that's how I took it.
Yossi's doing a deal with someone right now. Look at that. He's doing a deal right now.
All right,
Who is that next to him? Who is that?
I don't know. Let's take the next question over here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda Coulong with Tech Zulu. We are a media outlet here in Los Angeles covering tech, in case you have news for us, Mike. I'm curious what question you were hoping Jason might ask you tonight that he didn't.
Are you asking Mike if he wanted me to propose to him? Is that what you're saying?
I was
Yeah,
hoping,
maybe. I mean,
question,
you
Mike?
never know. But no, is
I
there
was
a
hoping
question?
for more of a discussion about work ethic, because that's a current topic. Facebook stuff, privacy, you know, stuff like that, like actual trends and stuff, as opposed to like, you know, my deepest, darkest psychological issues. But whatever, it's fine, you know.
So I mean, talk more about the work ethic stuff. I mean,
It's 8:05. I mean, don't these people get to leave at some point?
we'll take one.
I always found
you guys
that
want to keep
successful
listening, ask one
events.
more questions, or break now?
Yeah, bar.
right.
Bar was the first word. I mean, successful events end promptly, I've always found, so.
All right, then we'll take one last question. We'll break to the bar.
You have to be respectful of people's time.
Thanks, guys. I'm John Lawrence, G Extreme. We're Network Effects, live video, and a minority co-founder. So, hey.
We're in.
Right on. Just had a quick question for you. When you're talking about VCs, if you have a hypothetical choice between VC money and stupid private money, would you take the stupid private
Assuming
money?
those are different things, right?
Yeah, maybe. Like private investor with a lot of money who's
Depends on the
super
cost.
stupid.
I mean, is valuation 2x, 3x?
Yeah.
It depends entirely on the specifics and also what kind of company you are and how much the VC will help you in terms of you know, getting deals done, marketing, that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. Really fun.
Usually I'm the person thanking the guest.
I was just drawing it to a close. So let's go.
Any psychological musings aside, one of the things I do want to say is I've considered you for 5+ years now someone that was a very instrumental person in helping us get Docstoc off the ground and doing a lot to help out a lot of tech companies. And I appreciate what you've done for us, for the thousands of tech companies that you touched, and for taking some time to come down here today and talk to everybody here. So thank you, Michael.
Thanks for having me down here.
So this was a great experience for me so far. You bet. I mean, I plan on coming to more.
I've been coming to Startups Uncensored now since the very beginning. I can't believe it's grown this much. I remember when it used to be closer to 40, 50 people. To think that it's at 700 now is kind of mind-boggling.
My impression of Startups Uncensored is it was just a really, really insightful talk by Mike Arrington. I know Jason asked him some really difficult questions, so we learned a lot.
What I like most about Startups Uncensored is the group of people it collects.
I just learn every time I come here.